Thank you very much. The most recent report of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights on the situation of human rights in Sri Lanka, released earlier this month, states in paragraph 61, and I'm quoting, "In the absence of credible or effective domestic remedies, there have been some developments at the international level and in member states outside of Sri Lanka to advance accountability. For instance, communications were submitted in October and November 2021 to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court under Article 15 of the Rome Statute, requesting that the prosecutor exercise jurisdiction over crimes under international law in Sri Lanka. While Sri Lanka is not a state party to the Rome Statute, the communications submit that the alleged crimes occurred partially on the territory of states parties." That's the end of the quote. The communication in November to which this paragraph refers comes jointly from the NGO's Tamil Rights Group and the International Tamil Refugee Assistance Network. Saratich, Katpana Najendra, who you just heard from, Sam Ratna, Hannah Taylor, and I were the co-authors of this submission. The report was the result of a UN Human Rights Council resolution to promote accountability in Sri Lanka. The resolution asked the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to present to the Council strategies and options for advancing accountability. One option presented by the report is the joint initiative that the two NGOs have taken to engage the International Criminal Court. Now, the budget and time of the court are limited, and the situations meriting their attention are regrettably all too many. Several of the crimes the court is addressing are ongoing, creating an urgency to the work on these crimes. Asking the court to address any crime against humanity means giving the crime a priority in an overcrowded agenda and expending funds on investigation and prosecution of the crime which could have been expended elsewhere. Priority is deserved for this situation, I would argue. Crimes committed in Sri Lanka against the minority Tamil population during the Civil War for at least three different reasons. One is the gravity of the offenses, and we heard something of that earlier. One measure of the gravity of the crime, so far from the only, is the number of people who have left Sri Lanka because of them, roughly 1 million. The Tamil population in Sri Lanka today is approximately 3 million. So about 1/4 of the Tamil population of Sri Lanka is now outside of Sri Lanka because of the hostile environment they faced in Sri Lanka. A second reason for the priority is the need to explore and make a ruling on a legal issue the situation presents. This referral that has been made to the International Criminal Court relies on a court precedent that Sarah Teach will talk about, the Myanmar, Bangladesh precedent, but goes beyond it to include indirect deportations from Sri Lanka to a state party to the Rome Statute, where the victim passes in transit through a state not party to the Rome Statute, as well as direct deportation, which is the Myanmar Bangladesh precedent, from Sri Lanka directly to a state party to the Rome Statute. Do the crimes against humanity of deportation and persecution connected to that deportation encompass indirect as well as direct deportation? In our view, they do. However, this is a question the International Criminal Court should be asked to answer because of the importance the answer has generally. A third reason for priority is the importance of the message the prosecution of these offenses would give. Investigation, arrest, prosecution, conviction, and sentencing are deterrents against repetition of any crime, not least crimes against humanity. Immunity is a license for further mass atrocities. The International Criminal Court needs to send a message that remaining in power, covering up, denying the crimes, pretending to do something about the accusations but in fact doing nothing, and blaming the victims does not grant immunity. The court needs to communicate that there is no statute of limitation for crimes against humanity, both in law and in fact, that perpetrators will be prosecuted no matter what their efforts to avoid responsibility for their acts, no matter what their current positions of power, and no matter what time has passed since the crimes have occurred. Prosecuting the perpetrators of mass atrocities committed against innocent Tamils in Sri Lanka will send these messages. The crimes committed during and at the end of the Civil War in Sri Lanka call out for a remedy. The crimes of Sri Lanka resulted in a massive refugee populations spread around the world, many of whom are still not resettled today. There are crimes with a global significance. Locally in Sri Lanka, the perpetrators remain in power. They give immunity themselves, including diplomatic immunity, by appointing perpetrators to diplomatic posts. They prevent meaningful repatriation, reconciliation, truth, and justice. If there is to be justice at all, it must come from outside Sri Lanka. An engaged international instance can show much more clearly and systematically the international dimension of the crimes, their seriousness and global impact, than justice in any one particular country could do. The UN Human Rights Council in Geneva has been actively engaged for years in the events which ended the Civil War, attempting to get a full accounting and justice for the victims. Those efforts have mostly gone nowhere, but have not yet reached a dead end. There's an obvious match between the claim for accountability coming from the Human Rights Council and the availability of accountability through the International Criminal Court. We can get those two pieces of the international human rights system to fit together through the International Criminal Court. The United Nations Human Rights Council, which mandated the report on Sri Lanka just released this month, had in total 51 states which supported the resolution, either by co-sponsoring it or by voting in favor of it, or both. The recent report concluded, as I noted, an absence of credible or effective domestic remedies. Every one of those 51 states who stood behind the resolution on accountability in Sri Lanka, which generated the present report, should now join in a referral of the situation, the report addressed to the International Criminal Court. Their commitment to accountability in Sri Lanka demands no less. At the end of the day, crimes against humanity will be remedied only if humanity takes up the cause of justice. Thank you.